Hey everyone, we're going to be talking about Amaris, the Vampress. Yes, I know there's going to be some errors on these cards, like this misspelling here. It's going off the edge, so I need to fix that. And some instances of blood hasn't been underlined. This is just the first draft, so we got to go through and correct everything still. So just bear with me if you see errors, they will be corrected. So let's talk about the roll card first. Amaris is going to be using a blood mechanic to ramp up her powers based on her with her passive and flip. The blood's going to be an always active, so let's just read that together. Whenever you activate a bottom ability, these are bottom abilities, the bottom part of your power, gain a blood. At 5 blood, remove all blood and heal 3 and unflip your roll. So you're going to be gaining blood every time you activate these bottoms down here. Sometimes the tops will also gain blood at the cost of some negative effect. Your top abilities do not exhaust when activated. So if I activate a top ability, such as blood sucking, it does not flip over. It does not exhaust. When spending morale, you do not refresh X exhausted powers where X is equal to your blood. So, if I have 3 blood, and I have 4 exhausted powers, or let's just read the example actually. You have 4 exhausted powers and 3 blood. When spending morale, you would only refresh 1 power. If you have 2 blood, you would refresh 2 powers. If you had 4 blood and 4 exhausted powers, you would refresh 0 powers. If you had 0 blood and you spend morale, you refresh everything. 1 blood, you just refresh, and you have 3 exhausted powers, you would only refresh 2 of those. So the blood just restricts your refresh. But at 5 blood, you get to heal 3 and unflip your roll. So there's a lot of strength in blood. You're going to be playing around your roll card more than around morale. So here's your passive. Your passive is your attacks deal +1 damage for each blood you have. This costs 2 dice. Normally, these abilities do about 4 damage. But in her case, if she has 3 blood, this would do 5 damage. So it's like a kind of a slow ramp, but you don't get blood for activating the top. And remember, this doesn't exhaust, but now you have 3 blood, you're dealing 5 damage. If you don't try to get the 5 blood, you're going to be unable to refresh as many powers if you're forced to spend morale. So now if a monster deals me 3 damage and I have 3 blood, but I'm doing all this extra damage with my top abilities, refreshing is going to be a little on the worst side for you. So you need to make sure you play around that. The flip is your bottom abilities are reduced by 1 die for each blood you have. Remember, you still gain blood even when this is flipped. This isn't always active. So let's go over here, for example. Say I have 3 blood and I flip this. This would be reduced by 3 dice. So blood sucking could cost like a 1 and a question mark. So a 1 in any other dice or 2 in any other dice, whatever you want it to be. And then choose your effect that you want to do. Now, after this ability's been activated, you will go to 4 blood. So you use 2 dice to activate that. And the next bottom ability I activate will be reduced by 4 dice. So let's just say I can use any dice to activate blood enchantment. Next round, your attacks deal +2 damage, or I can choose next combat, or up to 2 players, or remove this power from my player board and set it under another power for the rest of the game. Attacks in that power deal +1 damage. Great if you have someone with multiple attacks like Unmei to remove this and to do that. But anyways, this would be reduced by 4, so I pay 1 of any dice. And then I would gain a blood. At 5 blood, you immediately remove all blood and you go back to 0. You heal 3 and unflip your roll. You don't get to reduce anything by 5 dice. The moment you hit 5 blood, everything is reduced, or all blood is removed, and you resolve your healing and you unflip your roll. But now you have your passive back, but you're back at 0 blood. You can't reduce these bottom abilities anymore. So you're probably going to not have many dice left. I use 2 here, 1 here. I could still try to activate the top up here. That's an option, or these here. Usually the tops are pretty cheap, but you're not going to be getting any more bottom abilities. If there's another player in the game, you could deal 2 damage to gain 2 blood and start ramping up your next turn, or end the turn on 0 blood and spend morale if you have to. Whatever you need to do. Let's just go over some of her powers now. So some of her top abilities, like, remember the top abilities don't exhaust, and some of them deal damage to other players. You can gain blood, but every time you activate a bottom ability, you gain a blood, no matter what. The bottom abilities are expensive. Like here, this is 8 dice. The only way you're going to activate it is if you have at least 2 blood and you flip your roll. This deals all players 2 damage, and you deal 15 damage to all enemies. If you activate this when your blood is at 4, instead deal all players 3 damage and deal 18 damage to all enemies. Let me make something else known. If I have 3 blood and I activate deal, or sorry, if I have, say I have 2 blood and I activate deal another player 2 damage, I am dealing them 4 damage. You gain the blood after the activation, but you do +1 to your attack. So you would deal another player 4 damage to gain 2 blood. So abilities like this are best to be used at 0 blood, so you don't deal additional damage to players. But when you flip your roll, you don't have access to your passive. So down here, unless somehow your roll gets unflipped, or you decide to activate this at its normal cost of 5 dice, and you say you have 4 blood, you would deal a player 6 damage, and you would deal 14 damage. So it's just remember your passive does work against your allies as well. So like I said, to use these, you have to flip. There's she has some cool abilities where you can remove them from the game to get bonuses to other players or yourself. You can put this on another one of your power to ramp it up the rest of the game. This one down here, Forbidden Secrets, deal 5 damage, heal 2, adjust 2 dice by up to 3. Also, there's a cool effect with Lemme. You may only activate this ability if Lemme is in the game. All dice for all players are wild this round, and then you replace this power. The reason is she is a forest elf originally. Before she left the forest and her body shifted to a new form, she was hungry for blood and became a vampire. There's a lot of story on the cards. If you want to read, you're more than welcome to. And there'll be her lore. Her lore will be in the art and lore book. But go over a few more powers, like Dagger Swipe, for example. Put a counter on this power and exhaust 1 power. So I would, because remember, top abilities don't exhaust, but you have to exhaust another power in addition to this. So I could exhaust Forbidden Secrets, and then you deal damage equal to the number of counters on this card. So if there's 2 counters on this card, and I have 3 blood, it would deal 5 damage on a single dice. If this power ever becomes exhausted with counters on it, remove it from the game. It does not replace. At 5 counters, replace this power. So, and you can see the bottom, deal 12 damage and add a counter to this power. Does not exhaust. Deal 4 damage for each counter on this power. Does not exhaust. So the best thing is to get to 4 counters and then just spam the bottom. The bottom could do 16 damage on 6 dice. So if you flip, you can possibly get this down to 2 dice if you have 4 blood. And it does not exhaust. If this power ever becomes exhausted with counters on it, remove it from the game. It does not replace. At 5 counters, replace this power. So this bottom one, if you get to four counters, you could just keep spamming this ability. But you run into a risk if it somehow gets exhausted, takes damage, whatever, it's gone forever. It does not replace, so you're going to have a missing slot. And here's another one, like these counter powers, really fell in love with these. Add a counter to this power and gain 1 blood. If this power has 5 counters on it, you may activate the bottom ability. So there's a condition to activate the bottom ability. You have to have 5 counters on it. You may not activate this ability after it reaches 5 counters. So you can't activate the top anymore after this reaches 5 counters. If this power ever becomes exhausted with counters on it, replace it. This one replaces. This one gets removed if it becomes exhausted. To activate this ability, this power must have 5 counters. Remove this power from the game. For the rest of the game, when you reach 5 blood, you reset to 2 blood instead of 0 blood. So you're investing 10 dice into this. And then you have to invest a lot more dice into the bottom. There's a lot of turns you're going to have to invest into this. But ultimately, once you invest those dice, you can permanently be at a better state of resetting to 2 blood instead of 0. So your roll card becomes that much better. She has a lot of damage in her kit, a lot of utility. Really fun. There's a lot of ways to replace her power, so you can cycle through your deck. This is a great power to use at 0 blood. Deal yourself 5 damage, set your blood to 4. If you do that, and then you activate... if you do that and you deal yourself 5 damage, you have nothing to activate, though. So just be careful, unless someone can prevent some damage that you dealt to yourself. Because you can't activate the bottom of this. But I guess you could use this one to take damage. So you could deal yourself 5 damage and leave, say, Dagger Swipe available at 4 blood flip, but you would only have 1 ability to activate. But then you would heal 3 after hitting that 5 blood, and then your roll card would on flip, and you could start activating the tops of those 3 you healed again. So there's cool plays you can do, such as that. This video is going a little long. There's just a lot of details about her. She's a very complex character, But overall, I think she is going to be a very fun character. I think people will really like her. She's been really fun to design. We still have about 5 powers left to design on her. There's 15 of them done. So we'll get those done eventually. And yeah, if you have any questions, please comment below and take care. Bye.